Today I'm going to paint a seascape with the water coming up onto the sand with a couple of waves out the back there. Just a simple watercolour of water coming in. I'm using Arches A4 rough paper, and also I've got Winsor & Newton masking fluid, and I'm just running that down the end of a brush because then it goes straight into the container. It won't go all over the place and spill. Clean the tops of your masking fluid, also the cap. That's a great way to keep this free and open, otherwise you'll be scratching to get the tops off these and it doesn't happen. That's put away. Never paint out of the bottle. It's always put into something, and then that's discarded after. I don't use that again. And so I was just noticing here as I was painting that putting the masking fluid on, you can colour the masking fluid, but I've seen it actually colour some paper at times. So if you can see it well enough in the camera, that's all that needs to happen. We'll see it later when I take it off. And so the mistake I've made here is that as the water is coming in and up the sand, I've actually got this going out, whereas in fact it would sort of follow in just a little bit and then back out to there. So have a look at that when you're doing it, because sometimes we reverse things in our mind than what it actually is. And the same thing here. It would have come down a little bit lower into there, and I've tried to make it look like it's coming downhill a little bit so that it would come in there, back out a little bit, not so much, and back around and follow that out. And of course that's the dark section of the sand. I did have, until that's gone off, a photograph of Cronulla, of the water at Cronulla, so that you can see not so much where it's coming up on the sand, but you can see how it comes in sections, and then it's got the waves breaking out the back. So I've got quite a nice lot of photos there, and so I've just sort of made up an artwork from looking at those. And so again, as that comes in, it probably would go back in a little bit and back out. So I'm all the time changing the actual angle of what I've got, and it can come up a little bit closer that way. A little bit too much of a turnout there, that's the same deal. Just doesn't follow the actual idea of where it's going up the beach. It won't be exactly, because water dries at a different rate, but I'm now going to put masking fluid onto the paper, and it's got the white froth in the front of the wave. That would come over the wave there, that would come out of the wave. It wouldn't just have that line following. It would at times come out the top of the edge of that and not be just the flat edge on the back edge of it, because you're looking at it going up that way. And so in there, I've just got the pattern. I'm putting it on with the end of a very neat round brush and back into here. But don't leave that and then think that you're going to come back to it. That won't work either. So that's the back edge of the foamy white edge, and then it comes up from there. So I'll go up in a few places as well, because it looks a bit stilted if you just keep going in the one place where it's thick. And if it's all equal spots through there, you'll find you need to join some of your spots up so that they look like they're running up the wave. It's concentrated down here more, and then less as it goes up the wave. I take those lumps out too if I've got bigger lumps. Okay, back to this. Some of them can go straight up as well without being too split. Back to the foreground here. That can be a rough edge coming into a straight edge, and that's rolling over. So make your masking fluid look like it's rolling over. Okay, a bit of a rough edge on it. Bit of a rough edge out that side. Don't make it all the same wherever you go. Just got a line along it there that's quite risen, so I'm just going to put some, although you won't see that in the actual end artwork. You won't see that, but just sort of check what you're doing as well. Bit of a scribble, water does that sort of thing. Comes in around. Where I haven't gone out to there, I'll either have to rub it out or do something, otherwise it'll be in there. It'll show up when I've finished. I always have pencil on my work, always. This is coming up to where the wave's not broken. So you'll see more of it in that section where it's not. And then here, it'll start to turn over. It'll start to come down and turn over. This one here will go out and around that way, because that's the way the water's pushing. If I start down here, they'll be really fine by the time I get up to the top. There's a lot going on now. A little bit less up here because it's going out of the picture. Okay, just about to the edge of that. Make sure it doesn't have that. Make sure it's going the right way, out that way. There's a rock there, but there's foam around the rock. So I'll just start to get a white patch in there with foam. That'll give me that edge to the rock. That'll be the top of the rock. Can come over the rock and down the rock. I won't know what I've got there until later, which is, I find it really interesting not to know what you've actually got on the artwork until you take off the masking. Okay, so then we've got the waves coming across here. Now the top of the wave is not dead straight, never dead straight. Sometimes it can be very straight where it's very strong and it might do a straight line, but then it comes over. And so there's more masking fluid on here than anything else, and down and out. That'll just give the front edge of the wave coming that direction. So I need this to sort of roll over and come down that way. That'll do. Okay, so there's some bigger waves. I possibly could get a bigger brush. The top of the wave is going to be dark, and this is where the wave has split. There's a bit of it there that's coming down here. That's where it's rolled over. I can pick up more on the actual, like quite a bit on the end of the brush, and it's probably more attractive to do that. It goes up and over, so you'll see just that line. So I'll come over here and get it thin and just get that line over. It's very, very thin. Down through here. Now that's very straight. What I've done there is very, very straight. I'll muck that up a little bit and get it to come down in places. So that's coming down to the next wave. I won't leave too many pokey ends on these. They won't have that many. Up here the wave's getting thinner. Just get that to go out, I think, of the picture, so there's not too much on it. That's where the wave started to turn, and then I've got the big section of the wave down here. So I've got two parts to the wave, the top and the bottom. So this is the top. I'll leave just a line across that because otherwise I can't see where it joins up. So it goes from there across to there. Just left a little trail across. Coming back this way, so make sure you keep your angle. I could actually pour some on there with a pipette, would be much easier now that I've got such a bigger area to do. Just draw it up in a pipette and put it down the middle. A lot of bubbles. The bubbles will go eventually. Nice bubbles. And clean that up. Make sure you don't leave it in the pipette or you won't have that again. The pipettes are available at Officeworks. I've seen them at Officeworks in packets, maybe 3 or so. And then that's cleaned out. I clean that out straight away, or you can let it dry and take it out, but I generally just clean it out. As soon as it's dry, it comes out anyway. And so then I'm never sort of scratching for something that's got dried masking fluid in it next time I want to use it. Okay, so at the end of the brush again, and that'll fill in the top of that, top of the wave, and then coming down the wave. It's coming that direction. Different levels so that it's coming down and up. Last of the bubbles. It's coming over that way. Regardless of the pencil being there, I could rub that out when it's dry if I wanted to not have it there. Make sure it's got a few bubbly bits on the end of it. Doesn't have much white in that, so that'll be quite white when I take it off. The bubbles in this won't matter. If you're doing other work and you don't want bubbles, then they'll just burst if you actually go and touch them. But if you don't, they'll leave little white spots all over your artwork. This could have some speckle work on it. That would be done with a toothbrush if you wanted to. I think my toothbrush is a little bit dirty for that. Here's a clean one. I can see a clean one. So if I wanted to have a little bit of spray, you could do that as well, where it's spraying up. Take off the masking fluid lid. Just put some in the in that area here, because if I put it in the middle, I'll get a lot on the toothbrush, and I don't want too much toothbrush work, but just a little bit of spray. So just got an ordinary old toothbrush. Put some on. Don't go to your artwork first. Go to a piece of paper and see what it's going to do. Put my finger underneath it, head it downhill, and just do that and see what you get. I've got a nice lot of speckle there. It's not too thick, but you've tested it first before you've actually gone to your artwork. Now I'll do it again, but only to get the excess off, because the first lot probably could give you a blob. That's all right. And that can spray up at the back here, just a little bit at the back there, a little bit up the back there. But the wave would have to have kicked up to do that as well, so I can't see much on there at all. Have another go. You can always go over it. If you don't like it later, you can just put colour over it. There's some there now. A little bit through there, just a couple of places. That's washed in water to get it out. I put detergent on my normal brushes, like this brush, if I'm using it with masking fluid, but the toothbrush I don't worry about, it just washes out generally. Or you've got citrus cleaner that you can use. I'm just going to muck that up just at the top where it goes up to that speckle. Otherwise it doesn't have any reason to have it there. That's just stuck. So I'll come and get some more, and that's where I've kicked that up and put some up there, going into that, so the top of the wave's not dead straight where it's gone up there. Now that has a drying time. When that's dry, I'll come back and paint. Okay, the colours I'm going to be using for the Seascape are raw sienna, French ultramarine, cobalt turquoise, indanthrone, Windsor green blue shade, and burnt sienna. Those colours will be used in the Seascape. And I've actually drawn up a horizon line there, and I'm just going to soften that line. I don't want it to be that noticeable, and it doesn't have to be dead straight. And because it's rough paper, it shouldn't give me an incredibly straight line. Just get a bigger brush to brush that off. And start to do the horizon line. I'm going to do that in a blue-grey. I'm not going to do it really bright blue. just to sort of get the atmosphere of the artwork. So I can have different colours in it. So I'll just start out by working my way along that line. And so if I put the brush down this way, it won't be dead straight. The line will actually just feather itself out on the top of that. So there could be small little lines on there. I'll pick up some water and just let it drop in and see if I can see the line just along there. Now I can put different colours in it as well. This is the lighter side over through here and the darker side over that side. Now it's a bit lumpy there. For a distance, I've looked at the horizon line out to Cronulla many times. You'll find at days it's a different colour. It's has different heights to the sky. The line sometimes is dead straight, sometimes the line isn't straight. So I've just left it at that at the moment. I'm bringing in raw sienna now, and raw sienna will come up on the beach. I'm going to actually put it in through here, but I'm going to leave a patch of blue through there. So I'll put it there to start with. Now, you know, if you end up with raw sienna and blue together, you end up with green. But I am going to try and get a little bit of blue in through there as well. So that's just coming in through there. That's up to the dark water line that goes along the edge of the beach. And then I'm going to actually, that's coming out that way. Now, if you get a water line that's going that way, and I'm just making sure it is going that way, and a water line that's going back this way, then generally they don't meet. I'll just put that there just to see if we can get that to happen. And I'm just going to put a little bit of the colour of the sky in through there. So that was just the dirty colour with a bit of blue on it. And so now this is the colour of the sky coming through there, and that'll go up to that line. And those lines and all that colour will change, but you'll just see that on the beach as well. Just a little bit of that colour coming through there, very light. It's getting a little bit darker as it comes towards us. And that'll just go in around there, but it hasn't gone into the sand a great deal, but I can also bring it up the sand. I can also get it to come up now that I've just got a bit of colour in there. Just fill that in. And that now has that look of it going up the sand. And so where it gets back to the water, it goes back to raw sienna and into the actual water. You'll get some raw sienna in there because of the colour change. The sand is underneath the water. Got a dirty palette here. It's really quite dirty, which again, I don't worry about that because that gives me a complex palette. That gives me a little bit of raw sienna in through there and up on the water. Okay. Up into the water. Just let it go up into there. Now the colours will change as well as you're actually painting. Just get that to have that edge taken out so it's just got the streaks coming up the beach. See if I can get some stronger ones. This is now a bluey sort of colour up the beach. That'll make it look like it's deep so that it looks like a shore dump. That's what I was trying to actually create, something that looks like a shore dump. And so that's the sand going down. The dark sand will come in here later and back up underneath, and now we'll start in the water. I'll go to the lightest part of the water, and that'll be cobalt turquoise. Just going to clean up some of this palette. And so cobalt turquoise in this dirty paint will give me all sorts of colours. So I've got pinks and blues and different colours in there. I'm just going to shift that over so that I can see the palette. So that I could shift it so you can see all of the palette. No, we're not going to get all of the palette. Shift that up a bit. And so now you've got part of the palette that's showing up through there. And now I've got those dirty colours coming up through here into that transparent part. This is the transparent part. That's going to be some of the lightest. Get the angle that you're coming up to that. I'm going to put some of the Winsor Green blue shade up into that just for some effect. Just right up into the top of that wave. Just put water on it now so it changes colour. So all those colours will go together. Bring it down into that and start to get those colours to mould together. Don't want to go over that line too much, but just into that. Okay, so start to get the paper wet. Now we've got a lighter side, darker side, so I can really get stuck into it here. And so over the lighter side, I'm going to go to some French ultramarine and start to get this all wet. That'll go down into there up to 2 waves. There's one there and one there. That'll just leave some marks in that to start with, so it's not just filled in. Up in the high part there, I'll go back to the Winsor Green blue shade and let that join in together. So it's starting to actually have colour back there. I'm coming right up to that masking fluid because basically you don't want the masking fluid not to have any effect, and it will have no effect if you basically have no colour behind it. So now we're getting into this section here. I'll start out with the light colours I had. I've got a bit of pink here as well. A bit of pink colour for this that was in the sky. I'll bring that into the water. So that'll come in, get the paper damp. You can have some white streaks in there as well. Now I can turn my wrist around the other way and get that to have that turn back up into there. I'll get some French ultramarine now. That stronger colour where we're closer. Mixture of both now. Just getting all the colours just to get the paper wet. Okay, so that's got colours coming in. Now while it's wet I can start working from about 1/3 of the way down the page. And the 1/3 of the way down the page is for stronger colour. So I've got French ultramarine, less water, some cobalt turquoise. Cobalt turquoise can be a little bit thick if you put too much on as well. The Winsor Green blue shade. I don't think we'll see much raw sienna back in there, but I'll start getting a little bit more raw sienna into the colour of the waves as well. So in here, there's no raw sienna in there, so I'm going to get that a little bit stronger, close to us. That'll go into there. And I'm starting to get the darker colours. Now the darker colours need to go in where the wave's rising. And that's in through here and back in underneath here, so that where it comes down underneath here, it'll have some strong colours. So I've got cobalt turquoise. That you might be able to see through that wave too. Keep the angle going. Leave some of the light colour as well. Don't just make it all dark. I'm going to get a lot of dark now. Cobalt turquoise, some Winsor Green blue shade, and I'll get that right in there. So that's got a really nice lot of colour there. Not so much there, but it's going up there. Don't forget to get this to go into that. That's the whole idea, is to get that to happen. And get some more stronger colours into that. I'm just going to come back over here to get up underneath that edge where that's actually starting to turn over as well. Bring the brush down on the point so that it's got that turnover of colour. I'll bring some of the cobalt turquoise into it so it's not just one colour. That'll come down. Now that you'll notice I'm turning my wrist. My wrist tells me what side the brush is going to be hitting the paper on, meaning that way or that way. So I turn my wrist. Now be careful it doesn't get very, very muddy. It's very pretty down here, but I do need a little bit of colour underneath that turn. And so again, the ultramarine, Winsor Green blue shade and some French ultramarine. I've got all the colours now, just in a couple of places. Just in through there. just so you can see up into that wave. Now that gives you something to look at, but I'll take some of it out and leave some of it, because then we get into the greens. I don't think I need much over there, maybe a little bit going out of the page. That'll do, because otherwise I'll lose that pretty colour. Now up into that light section, it probably gets a little bit stronger down here in the bottom of that to turn it, to make it look like it goes down. It's got a little bit of white over there, I'm going to leave that. There's nothing better than what you don't paint. What you don't paint is as important as what you do paint. Okay, getting the colours again, ultramarine, cobalt turquoise and Windsor green blue shade. Just going to put some in here, just to give it that look of making it look around the artwork. That'll come into there too. It needs some colour to come into the raw sienna, and in coming in it'll change your colours as well and give you beautiful colours. Okay, stop with that, let it do its own thing, leave it beautiful colours there. Make sure you've got some colour. Okay, still hasn't got anything in there, not much in there. Water needs to come into that. Alright, so now it's actually got enough colour on there, and some depth will come later. So I'll leave it at that stage. I'll go over to the back now and start with the water. And I've got a lot of French ultramarine. And I'll move now to some darker colours with some indethrin. I'll put some indethrin in that. So I'll start out with the French ultramarine. I always start with the lighter values and work through to my darks, being a watercolourist. I don't paint other mediums. That's along the horizon line. Make sure you get that right to the... You could leave a couple of white tips out there if you want to. That's on the horizon. Now the beach is coming in sideways, so that's why you get that look of that coming in. You could leave some of those white patches there as well. Coming back up to the horizon line now, and I'm going darker. I should be going lighter. So that means a little bit more water, or I pick some up, or I just leave it. That'll start to get a wave happening there. A little bit of a wave there. Coming down. Now, if I paint at the top edge of my brush, that will leave the top edge of something. Don't know what, but it's left a top edge. So if I come underneath it now and just put paint underneath it and pick up part of that bottom edge and bring it over to here, the waves will be continuous out the back. Now, because I've got so much colour there, I'm going to pick up the same colours and put it up in here as well, just to come underneath that. Leave some white up the top there, so it's what's left. And so through the middle now, I won't need much darker paint, but I'll just add some paint through there that will just pick up lines through the waves coming in. They don't have to be too strong. You've got some white up there as well. And so now you're seeing the water coming in. That line across there is a bit too straight. I'm going to break that up. So I'll break it up by coming up to the top of it and getting a turn. So now you've got a turn coming into that wave and the wave's going that way. Come back up underneath it. Get it to go the right way, which is that way. And out of the picture. So now you've got a wave coming up that you didn't have, and some darks underneath that wave. So the darks will go back now to indethrin. This is indethrin now, so you'll see just underneath that wave a little bit of indethrin and a little bit of Windsor green blue shade. That'll go under it there. And then I'll just wait a couple of minutes. I can't wait. I can never wait. I'll just start dragging some of those ends down. So what that does is bring it down to the next wave. And so you've got that coming out into this wave. And so that's actually building up behind the wave that you've got masked out. Over here, I won't do much, just maybe a couple of streaks in there, just a change of colour, just going out to the background. So this is the major part that we want to focus on, so that's what I'm going to leave. In through here, there'd be a dip in through there too, so I'm just going to go to Indethrin, get it very, very wet. I don't want it too dark because I just put my brush in there. It's actually starting to buckle a bit, which is a bit of a problem as well. But in through here is where it would be starting to come down into that area. So that's just going to go through there, and I'll take out the bottom edge and the top edge. So I'm just mucking it up slightly. So that'll give me that dark blue coming through there. It's not that dark yet, but I can always add. I never ever go crazy to start with, because you can always dry it and come back to it. You don't have to put it all on together. Just a little bit over here. You find if your dampness is about the same, you're not going to get a lot of cauliflowers happening. It's just going to dry out as it is as you're doing it, because I'm not actually adding more water without actually putting something else with it. It's got very light up here. I possibly could get a little bit more colour down in the foreground here as well, just to get some lights and darks. Otherwise its values haven't changed. So I've got all the colours, just going to dart through here. Get a little bit of dark out around just this area there. Somebody will always ask, how do you know when you're finished? Well, if you always leave something, it's more interesting than if you paint it all. So if you keep that in mind, you can basically just leave some bits, and then you can always come back to it. That's the great thing about watercolour, that it's never completely dry, that once it's dry, you can always come back and wet it and it'll move again. And being a transparent palette, the colours I gave you are transparents, and basically that colour then will always be able to actually be lifted again. You can lift paint too with the tissue by actually drying a tissue, having a tissue, wash your brush, dry your brush. You can actually come down through there and take some light out as well. You could actually do that and get more direction in your artwork if you've lost the direction of where that wave's going. That will lighten bits off and get some light back if you lose it. Don't like that line that's there, so I'll just bring that over just a fraction. Make it look like it's got a rough edge up there too. Didn't like that much. Okay, so now we get back to underneath the sand that we've got some, the paint that's on here. We've got to get that waterline back on here. And so I'm going to be using raw sienna again with burnt sienna in it, because it's got to be darker than what the sand is, and a little bit of Indethrin. That will grey it down and leave a dirty sort of colour underneath the actual waves. So I'm going to bring it in there, and what that's going to do is it's going to actually go up to the sand where the water's bubbling in there, and leave a dark edge on the water, which is that edge there. And that edge will come up the beach as well. I'll bring that up in places. Coming in through here, darkening that edge, especially in these deeper parts. I won't leave that back edge too long until I load my brush again. So that's in through there. That just leaves that little section there. Now it's still damp but not dry, so I'll come up here and just get some of it to come up the beach. just so that every now and again you don't see that hard line in the edge of the sand. Could come out a bit further there, so I'll just keep brushing until it does, but it's very light. Let it go up the beach. And that gives you just a different colour in your sand rather than nothing there. And that's about as far as it needs to go. Right to the edge of the page. Just make it go to the edge. Now you've got the actual sand coming in through there. It's really a sure dump. It's going to dump all right. And a rigger. Fine rigger. I always put my brushes away dirty too, which is a bit of a thing where some people go, I always clean my brushes, but I've always got, this brush would have to be, I don't know, a couple of years old, and it's still got a beautiful point on it. So the brushes are put away dirty, and the reason I do that, and so I always qualify why I do something, because the paint has gum arabic in it, which is a water-based glue. And so if I put the brush away clean, it then goes furry. But I wash my brush when I'm ready to use it, and I always roll it. When I actually put it on a page or on a tissue, I'm always rolling into their points. And so therefore they keep a beautiful point. While this is damp, I just want to get a little bit of the rubbish that you'll get along the beach edge. You'll get some just bits and pieces of rubbish. I'll now make it with more blue in it that will make it blacker now, where it's coming towards you. A little bit of something there. Now that line there will go up underneath the waves. And so as you can see up underneath the waves there, that one will have that dark edge in it. You could do it in blue if you wanted to. It won't go up there. I'm going to change over to indethrine. So now it's a bluey colour instead of just grey. Now if you want it to be lighter, then I'll just run my brush along it. That's where the water's coming in. And I haven't done it all the way around, but I've wet my brush now and dried it, and I'll just push that back up to the edge of the wave. That's just the brush doing that. Nothing happened there really. If you wanted it to come down hard underneath the wave, which is what you'll actually see, you'll see it there, you could tilt the page and damp it as you're putting the other on, and it would make it run back there. Not that happy about that bit, so I'll just take out some of the edges. You can't see my pencil line. That's the only reason that I've done that, is to not see the pencil line. Okay, so that'll be put aside to dry now. Now that the artwork's dry, I can then start to bring in some extra darks into the artwork. And so after I do this stage, I'll basically put it aside after it's dry and then decide whether I need to do anything else with it, and see how that goes. So I've just got the blues again, French ultramarine, and that wasn't French ultramarines. I put my brush in cobalt, but this is French ultramarine. A little bit of the cobalt turquoise, a little bit of indethrine, that's the darker blue, and maybe a little bit of burnt sienna, just to grey those colours down fractions so that they're not too bright. And so now I'll let the brush do the work for me. That will come straight across to the actual sand in watermarks and then up. So you'll see sections of light, dark, so the brush is just moving around the paper. Didn't do so well there, so I'll come back to that. Up where I've actually, and I did a bit of drawing there, and that'll come into this section here. So now we're sort of creating the same sort of thing that we've done with the masking fluid, but with paint. So it's coming into there, leaving those sections of light and dark. Can come into there as well. Up around into the wave. And then I'll take some of the edges off that. So I'll come back here and just rub into that until I get the edges smooth without having like brush mark ends. I don't mind them sometimes, but sometimes they're a bit much. And so that'll just take that out of your view. Don't mind that so much. Let that go out to nothing so your eye doesn't have to just get stuck on it. I can take off the masking. It's more interesting if I do take it off now. So that's just come through there. Key points. I want you to look there, so I'll actually put more colour in it, just in through here. That'll run bits and pieces because it's still damp. Doesn't dry immediately, but because it's under lights, it probably is drying a lot quicker. Can't see exactly what's going to happen there because there's a lot of masking, there's a lot of paint. But that's giving you something that you need to look at. So I'll repeat those colours, which was the whole lot together. It was French ultramarine, it was Australia cobalt turquoise and indethrin together. And then I put a little touch of brown in it to grey it down. And so I haven't finished with that yet, but I'll get it before it dries too much, and I'll add some back up in underneath this roll. Just in here a little bit. It can go in onto the wave and then down. So I'll drag that down. You can have rough marks on the paper. Wave isn't completely smooth. Some are. I mean, I never say never for anything. If anybody tells me that something has to be that way, then I reckon if you wanted to, you could prove that everything can be different as well. Okay, so I've got that in there. Don't like the scrapey marks too much. I'll just tame those down. You tame those down with water because this will all sort of just blend in. That's flatter across here. There is a rock there, but I'll come back to that. So I've got one dotty mark there. Rather than change that, I'll leave it. I'll leave a lot of stuff that people would just have to go and fix. It annoys some people, but that's okay. That's part of who I am, actually. Just a little bit along there, back up into the depth of that one, and the same thing. But I'll wet the brush before I do it this time. Come up, wet the brush, and join it and meet it with a wet brush. So it's going to come down wet. And I'll leave that one without touching it. Same deal. Okay, I have now the light in through here. It doesn't have any bend in it. It just has the wave, but nothing else happening. So I'm just going to pick up some more of the Windsor Green Blue shade and French Ultramarine and get almost all water on my brush and just leave some of it in through here. The same thing about what we did with the white. I'm now doing it with the paint. So that'll go up to the wave and down and up. That leaves a little bit of interest in that in the middle of the wave. Otherwise it had nothing going on there, just the soft first colour. Okay, in there was a rock somewhere. I did paint a rock, which is ultramarine and burnt sienna, which makes almost a black. And in here somewhere there was a rock. And if I just do that and get that on there, that gets you something to look at, and it would have the water's bubbling around that, so you wouldn't see too much of a reflection of that because it's there. I'll just touch some of it there to take off some of the end of it so you're not seeing it as that. But it's a bit lonely. It's a bit like, oh geez. So I'm just going to put the brush around in a couple of places just to sort of add something to it, as if it's got some small rocks and that just in the foreground there. All right, I think that up the back here, I've still got to go up to the horizon line up there, which was indethrin and a lot of other colours. And just come back this way from the horizon line because it took a turn down there And so these waves now need to turn sideways. So I need to get some to go sideways with. The horizon line can be straight, but this is coming in sideways. So that goes in underneath that and will come back underneath that wave. And that won't be a straight edge. And now that's lighter because it's already got paint on it. That comes down to here. Just rough that line up. Some of the lines through here, just lines through the water. Don't make them equal, they were equal, so I'm just going to put another one in between and get rid of one of them. So your eye can't tell what is theirs instead of straight lines running through your work. That can have a trough in the middle of that too, that can get darker in the middle of this. That comes down to the next wave. Take the back edge out of that, we don't need to see that line. But now we've got the water coming in. You can't tell where the horizon line is, if there is one. It's got a little bit of a watermark there, but I'll leave that. We are doing a watercolour. All right, so I'll dry that now, and then we'll uncover it. I should nickname this artwork Shore Dump. Brings back memories of childhood at Cronulla, being dumped completely onto the sand. Just start to take off the masking fluid. I'm using a crepe rubber. That's the correct thing to take masking off. And now you'll start to see what happened. It'll be exciting. Break it up first if you've got a bigger area. That excited about the shape of that wave, but anyway, can all be changed. I like the edges of those. Now I'll rub my hand over because that's the best way to find masking fluid. A little bit of a speckle up there, not much. Okay, now if I want to be critical of my drawing, I don't particularly like the shape that I created with that. So I can come back and actually work into that and change it. And I'll get a tissue, a clean tissue, and I'll then start working in it to try and change it. And I don't like that U-shape arrangement there, so I'll push that back. I'll push it back and it'll disappear. Don't like the back edge of the paint either, so I'll just take that out. That'll just soften. And so therefore you've just got a softer edge in that. Now I can either put some raw sienna back in it, wait for it to dry maybe, or just put some colour in it and just let it go. So you're not looking at the silly shapes that are there. This one's taken a U-turn back where I put the extra paint on it. Not that excited about this one either. These are the worst ones, and these are the ones that I did that section on top of them. So I'm just going to come back here and take out some of that so that it takes out and goes in behind that. Just touch it with a tissue, that'll actually change it and give it a softer turn around in there. That's better shape. This one's got feet on it, it's got a weird shape, but I can push up the beach as well if I turn it sideways and push up the beach this way and change the shape of those. And so that's where I always sort of rub from the light to the darker area, which that's one area there. Take that out. Tissue. Take out these dog's teeth down the bottom. So it's a good idea to go down the beach and study the wash on the shore of the beach and see what you can find. This is just masking fluid. Masking fluid can make a job very difficult when it's something that you've got to correct later on. So that's pushing out and that's taking off those teeth. Maybe even take it further, take it right up. So this one's just got a few marks in it, but I can work on that. This one's got a few bits. It really doesn't have too many wobbles in it, and it's obvious now that it's got wobbles in it and it doesn't look good. So in through here, that'll just come in through that one there, take those out. Now I'll let it dry and come back to that as well. So I can just put some paint in there and then build that up later. Even touch it. And so it's starting to look better. It's got a bit of a cauliflower here, that'll come out of it. All you've got to do is just rub long enough and the cauliflowers will come out. That just goes into the water, which is nice, so you don't see this all the way. This one's annoying me. It's probably the worst one, other than this top section here. Just get rid of some of that. And this one, I'm going to push that out. Raw sienna on the brush. I'm going to take it back in. Better shape. Just keep working around it. It'll be in there, but it'll go into that colour, which had a bit of burnt sienna in it originally, the colour that went into here. Push that back underneath that wave. Straighten it up a bit. Now that's almost gone. Again, I dry it and then come back. So have a look at these as well. There's some of these that you won't want. So when they're up the top, I've got the Windsor Green Blue shade, and I'll just take some of those edges off the top. Not all of them, just some of them in the wave. Otherwise they're too white and they make you just look at that, where they'll stay in there, they won't disappear, but they'll just be a lot lighter. This one here's got a what I call an end that needs to go. I won't call it what I normally do. That one can disappear into there, so it's not too obvious. Down the bottom, do we have any that's looking really weird? Not so much. It doesn't look like water over the rock there too much either. That's done its own thing in rough paper as well. So that takes the edges of that out where I've played in it. And that comes up to there on the edge. So again, I can drop the colour back in here as well. And just get a new edge in that going into the water. But that comes round here. Gets a new edge on that. But if I keep going too much, I'm going to get dirtier and dirtier. So just take some of this back slightly. I don't think I need too much, maybe a little bit to carry the colours across to here, because it's one colour in one place and then others somewhere else. So I'm just going to bring some of the turquoise Windsor Green Blue shade into there. It's very light, but I don't want it dark. Drop it in. Little bit of the dark blues, not a lot. Got a little bit of indethrin. And then coming back up into here, what other colours are we missing? Could be a bit, no, it's not shallower back there. It'd be out to sea if it was shallower. So I'll just put these colours in behind here slightly. That will just give you just something that you're looking at with the colours repeating. Otherwise you've got no colours. Now, where these come over, you probably will get a little bit of a turn in these. Just a little bit there, a little bit there. This one's coming around the other way and coming back around that way to come back down. Not all of it, just some of it. All right, I'm going to leave it there and I'll undo it and take the tape off. Always pull the tape away from your artwork, and then I'm going to put it in the lounge room and then look at it for around about a week and then decide if something else needs to be done. As I said, you're going to always come back to it. You notice I'm working on a black board because I can see how much tape I put on the artwork. And that tape goes off right the way around. So that's the end artwork. You can see the whole picture there. All right. I hope you enjoyed it.